Actually, democracy is about power of the people.
When we talk about a new economy, we absolutely are talking about new ways of dealing with each other.
We define ourselves with nature.
To an economy that's organized around human need and care.
So let's look at the planetary disaster. We're losing the soil, we're losing the fresh water, we're losing the insects, we're losing all the other astonishing species that we share this planet with. We're losing the coral reefs, we're losing the rainforests, we're losing everything. And it's all going at a phenomenal rate. What's causing this? The driving force is economic growth. A global economy growing at 3% a year doubles every 24 years. And then it doubles again. And then it doubles again. That's the trajectory we're supposed to be on. That's what governments want, where it just keeps doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling, which would be just fine if the planet was growing at the same rate. But we live on a finite planet. And infinite growth on a finite planet is a recipe for catastrophe. The only way it's been done so far is to use ever-increasing areas of the world as places we effectively steal from.
Being in an urban environment and doing this type of work is key to reaching a lot of people and showing people of all ages, intergenerational, the importance of knowing where their food comes from and reconnecting the food with the community.
When we think of sustainability, we think of, okay, how can we kind of limit the harm that we're doing and kind of keep things where we're at more or less. But to be regenerative is to say we need to go way beyond that. There's already been so much damage that's done. We need to heal that damage. We need to increase biodiversity, create more life-affirming systems. So to regenerate is to really build back that network of connections between all organisms and living things.
An overall big process in terms of people healing not just their body, but healing their mind. And I think that's something that I've been able to do and been showing people how, so that they can appreciate the art of a farmer or a gardener, so that later on in life that, hey, you can do this yourself.
That's what this movement is about, us creating our own futures that we want. That's what regeneration is, and constant learning is how we will be able to adapt and regenerate.
Y el bien vivir, decimos, no es solamente tener una computadora, una televisión o dos televisores en la casa, un carro ahí para decir que estoy viviendo muy bien. No es eso para nosotros. Decimos vivir bien es que por lo menos tengamos derecho a sonreír, pero con salud, con alimento, con un espacio donde no tengamos que estar pensando ni sacrificando a otros para poder alguien vivir mejor, sino más bien que todos vivamos bien. Y no es solo para los indígenas, sino también como pueblos.
A radical ecological democracy, in the sense of trying to rescue the word democracy from its currently liberal interpretation where we think elections is about democracy. Actually, democracy is about power of the people. No? We each have within ourselves inherent power to take decisions or be part of decision making. Many other values that are explicit or implicit in this. For instance, the value of solidarity, not competition but cooperation. The value of working with nature as a commons, not as private property. The value of rights of all species. the value of living simply because if you consume more and more and more, you're actually impinging on the rights of other communities or on other species. The value of diversity, so that I respect your ethics and your ideologies and your beliefs and faiths, and you respect mine.
Cooperatives are important because it's a business model which provides ownership to the people who shop, who support, who work the particular industry that you're looking to enterprise in. And so I think that that's an important model for sustainability. That's an important model for economic development and growth. The majority of the citizens of Jackson own very little of the actual businesses which function here in Jackson. So it's important that we provide this model to the citizens so that they can have something which is invested back in them.
When we talk about a new economy, we absolutely are talking about new ways of dealing with each other, right? New ways of what is valuable and valued and legitimate even within an economic transaction, right? So bringing in reciprocity and trust and love is relevant. So when I use economy for solidarity economy, it's really very broad. And so solidarity economy is clearly on the end, focusing on the build. But we recognize that we're never going to be able to do this build without also the other side, which is the resist, or you could call it organizing, or you could call it, right, it's engaging with the current system and all the myriad injustices and oppressions of the system.
Scientists are increasingly clear that what's required is that high-income nations actively scale down their energy use. It's about scaling down unnecessary parts of the economy. So this is what's known as degrowth, which is a planned downscaling of resource and energy use to bring the economy back into balance with the living world, and to do so in a safe, just, and equitable way. I see this as kind of crucial to thinking about decolonization. I mentioned earlier how excess resource use in the global north is effectively a colonial process on the global south. So therefore, degrowth in high-income nations is a kind of form of decolonizing the global south in the sense of it removes pressure from the land and resources and human communities in the global south. And so this is a crucial demand for global justice in addition to an ecological demand. Effectively, what this is all about is shifting from an economy that's organized around extraction and accumulation to an economy that's organized around reciprocity, human need, and care.
For me, I feel like the piece of care, the piece of cultural degrowth is where we are lacking the most. That care piece is, I think, most critical to achieving the other pieces of degrowth, whether it's like refraining oneself from pursuing all that can be pursued at the expense of the earth. Like if you don't care about others and the earth, like you're never going to be able to limit yourself. And if you don't care about, others, then you're not going to, save or preserve the earth in a good condition for future generations, for people you don't even know.
And in effect, ecofeminists are saying we will not accept the false construction that we are separate from nature. We will not accept the false construction that some privileged, powerful men are superior to nature, the masters, owners, conquerors, and they're superior to those who they have defined into nature in inertness. We define ourselves with nature in creativity. That is the work we've done. That's the work that we are called to do. And that's the revolutionary work of our times.
The three principles of this revolution, it's like to build an ecological society, like the pillar of women's revolution, the women's liberation, and radical democracy. So already in the pillars, like this aspect of ecology, to overcome the annihilation of the human being, of the nature, is already implemented. But of course, like we have to see how it is in practice and daily life. And of course, it's a difficult process. It's a revolution. So that means like to change also the mentality of the people. So to change the way people are thinking, to how they address nature and so on. This revolution is fascinating because this is really something fundamental, not to implement laws and by force, like changing the way of production, changing the structure of society, but more with long-term discussions. So in some villages, you have to discuss for years to implement a new way of like a more ecological and cooperative way of production. But it works. Like we can see many examples where after this long process, now there are cooperatives like for working on the land, but also for example, domestication of animals and stuff like this.
Because of all of this, to my mind, alliances become really important. The forces that are confronting us are not just Indian, they are global, of all the kinds that I mentioned. And therefore, the need for alliances of all the alternative and the resistance movements across the world. But these are alliances that need to be based on a respect for diversity. So it's not about the whole world turning to degrowth or buen vivir or Swaraj or whatever, that we all come under one umbrella, but that we all have our own peculiar, unique and interesting ways of creating resistance and alternatives. And the search then for what is common ground without labeling ourselves as any one of them. And that common ground to me is the fundamentals of ethics. It's the values, it's the principles that we espouse in these movements.
Health is caring for the community. It is love for our existence and the land we walk, the life around us. Health is the ethics that bring society together. It is the balance of our biodiversity. The health of our society is now facing a new threat, which is also part of the ways of living that separates us from each other and nature. We are together in this, in solidarity with those who lost their lives and all the people who are fighting, every day, everywhere. Revolutionary hugs with deepest love and respect.